Chosen one, have you ever wondered why your prayers feel like they're hitting a concrete ceiling? Why have you been faithful for decades, yet the breakthrough seems reserved for everyone else but you? Why does God seem to answer the loud ones, the flashy ones, the ones with perfect lives, while you sit in the shadows, forgotten? Stop, right there. What if I told you that 3 nights ago, at exactly 2:47 a.m., the entire throne room of heaven went silent? What if I told you that angels stopped mid-song, seraphim paused their worship, and the Ancient of Days himself leaned forward? Not because of a celebrity evangelist, not because of a mega-church pastor, not because of someone with a platform or a title or a theology degree, because of you. You see, you weren't supposed to do what you did. You weren't supposed to give that last $20 when your electric bill was due. You weren't supposed to forgive the person who destroyed your marriage. You weren't supposed to keep praying for that prodigal child when everyone told you to give up. You weren't supposed to whisper, "Yes, Lord," in your kitchen at midnight when your heart was shattered into 1,000 pieces. But you did, and all of heaven stopped. The angels gasped. The golden bowls of incense your prayers began to overflow, and God himself turned to the hosts of heaven and said something that shook the foundations of eternity. This one, I can trust. You weren't supposed to rise when the world pressed you down, but you rose. You weren't supposed to give when logic screamed to hold tight, but you gave. You weren't supposed to love when betrayal told you to build walls, but you loved anyway, and heaven wasn't ready for that kind of faith. If your soul just stirred and you don't know why, type, "That was me, let the heavens take notice." Because what happened in the spiritual realm that night is about to manifest in your physical world. The move you made in secret, it disrupted the heavens, and now, heaven is about to disrupt everything in your life. Before we journey deeper into this mystery together, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through Super Thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and plant that seed of faith. But listen carefully, chosen one. What you're about to discover will explain why your life has felt like a spiritual battlefield. Why have the attacks been so intense? Why has the enemy fought you so hard? Because you shocked God. And now God is about to shock you back. Why do you think your biggest acts of obedience happened when nobody was looking? Why did your most radical faith decisions occur in complete isolation? Why does it feel like the moments that cost you everything were witnessed by absolutely no one? Because, dear chosen one, you've been living under the greatest misconception of your spiritual life. You thought you were alone. You thought your secret sacrifices went unnoticed. You thought when you gave your last dollar, forgave the unforgivable, or whispered yes to God in your darkest hour, that these moments disappeared into the void of human indifference. But here's the shocking truth that will shatter everything you believed about your hidden obedience. Heaven operates on live surveillance. Every moment of your life is being broadcast in real time to the courts of the Almighty. When you thought you were praying alone at 3 a.m., when you thought you were crying in secret, when you thought your acts of radical faith were invisible to the world, the entire celestial realm was watching with bated breath. Think about it. How many times have you done something that made absolutely no logical sense? How many times have you given when you couldn't afford to give? How many times have you loved when love seemed foolish? How many times have you obeyed when obedience seemed like financial suicide, relational disaster, or social embarrassment? The world called you crazy. Your family questioned your judgment. Your friends shook their heads in disbelief. But in that moment, that exact moment when you chose the illogical path of holy obedience, something extraordinary happened in the spiritual realm that you never imagined. Picture this scene with me. In the throne room of heaven, where time itself bows to eternity, where angels who have worshipped for millennia stand in perfect order, where the very air vibrates with holiness suddenly, everything stops. The perpetual praise ceases mid-note. The 24 elders who never rest from worship slowly turn their heads. The seraphim who cry, "Holy, holy, holy," without end, pause. Why? Because you just did something that shocked the courts of heaven. You see, angels understand logic. They comprehend divine order. They operate within the realm of the predictable and the ordained. But when you, a mere human, wrapped in flesh, burdened by bills and heartbreak and the weight of this fallen world, when you chose to act like heaven instead of earth, when you chose to give like God instead of hoard like humanity, when you chose to forgive like Christ instead of seek revenge like the world, the angels gasped. Not because they've never seen obedience before. They gasped because they've never seen this kind of obedience. The kind that costs everything and expects nothing in return. The kind that operates against all human instinct. The kind that chooses faith when doubt would be justified. Hope when despair would be reasonable. Love when hate would be understandable. Remember the widow in Luke chapter 21. Jesus sat in the temple, watching people throw their offerings into the treasury. The rich were giving large amounts, impressive donations that probably earned them recognition, applause, maybe even a plaque on the wall. But then came this widow, this forgotten woman whom society had written off. She had 2 small copper coins worth about a penny, not enough to buy bread, not enough to matter, not enough to make a difference. But she gave it all. And Jesus, the Son of the living God, stopped everything he was doing to point her out, not to the angels, not to the Father, to his disciples, to us. He said, "Truly I tell you, this poor widow has put more into the treasury than all the others." Why? Because while everyone else gave out of their abundance, she gave out of her poverty. While others gave what they could spare, she gave what she couldn't afford to lose. While the wealthy were making calculated donations, this widow was making a radical declaration. "God, I trust you more than I trust this money." Heaven wasn't just watching. Heaven was stunned. But let me take you even deeper into the mystery of divine observation. Let me show you how heaven responds when the illogical becomes holy. When Abraham lifted that knife over Isaac on Mount Moriah, every angel in heaven held its breath. Here was a man being asked to sacrifice the very promise God had given him, the son of his old age, the miracle child, the fulfillment of decades of waiting. It made no sense. It violated every human instinct. It seemed to contradict everything God had promised. But Abraham raised that knife anyway. Genesis 22:12 records the angel's cry, "Do not lay a hand on the boy. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son. Now I know." Even the angels were learning something about Abraham's faith in that moment. Even heaven was discovering new depths of human obedience. The courts of the Almighty were witnessing something so rare, so precious, so shocking that it became the standard for faith for all generations. And here's what will blow your mind. Your secret act of obedience just joined that eternal record. When you forgave the person who destroyed your marriage, when you gave sacrificially despite your own need, when you chose obedience over comfort, logic, or self-preservation, you didn't just make a personal decision. You created a celestial event. I can see it now, playing out in the throne room of the Most High. The Father, who knows the end from the beginning, who sees all things, who ordains all things, suddenly turns to the hosts of heaven. His voice, which spoke worlds into existence, which commands storms to be still, which will one day call the dead to life. His voice carries a tone of something approaching. Surprise. Not because God didn't know what you would do, He's omniscient, but because your obedience was so radical, so countercultural, so beautifully reckless that it deserved heaven's attention. The seraphim leaned forward on their thrones. The cherubim stopped their guard duties around the mercy seat. The archangels Michael, Gabriel, Raphael turned their gaze toward earth to witness this moment of pure, costly faith. And then came the declaration that changed everything about your future. "This one," God said, His voice echoing through corridors of eternity, "this one understands the heart of heaven. This one chooses." My ways when human ways would be easier. This one gives when taking would be logical. This one loves when hate would be justified. Heaven didn't just notice your secret obedience. It stood in honor. The angels leaned in, and God said, "Now, this one I trust." Trust, not just love. Every believer is loved. Not just calling many are called, but trust, the sacred confidence that God places in those who prove their hearts through costly obedience. The divine assurance that comes when heaven knows you'll choose God's will over your own comfort, His ways over human logic, His timing over your impatience. You've been wondering why the warfare has been so intense lately. You've been questioning why the attacks seem so targeted, so personal, so relentless. Here's why. Hell saw the same thing heaven saw. The enemy witnessed your radical obedience, and he knows what it means. He knows that someone who will obey God in secret, who will give when it hurts, who will forgive the unforgivable, who will trust when circumstances scream otherwise, that person is dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. Your secret obedience marked you, not for destruction, but for deployment. Right now, across America, from the farmlands of Iowa to the skyscrapers of Manhattan, from the beaches of California to the mountains of Colorado, God is awakening His secret agents of faith. People just like you who shocked heaven with their radical obedience. People who gave when it didn't make sense, loved when it wasn't logical, obeyed when it wasn't convenient. Drop your city in the comments right now. Let's see where heaven is moving today. Let's watch the map light up with the locations of those whom God has marked as trustworthy. But here's what you need to understand as we move deeper into this mystery. Your secret act of obedience didn't just catch heaven's attention. It triggered something massive. Something that's been building momentum in the spiritual realm since the moment you said yes. Because when heaven decides you can be trusted, when the courts of the Almighty mark you as reliable, when God Himself declares His confidence in your heart, that's when the real assignment begins. Listen to me carefully, dear one. I need you to go back to that moment. You know exactly which moment I'm talking about. That Tuesday night when you sat at your kitchen table, staring at that final notice. The electricity was about to be shut off. Your Social Security check was 3 days away. You had exactly $27.38 to your name. And then you saw it. That envelope from your church. The missionary offering. The one asking for support for that family in Guatemala you'd never met. Logic screamed at you. You can't afford this. You need every penny. God understands. But something deeper whispered, give it all. Nobody was watching. Your children live 3 states away. Your neighbors had no idea. Even your pastor would never know if you skipped this one. But you picked up that pen anyway. You wrote that check for $20. $20 you didn't have. $20 that defied every financial advisor, every practical voice, every reasonable thought in your head. You thought nobody saw it. But heaven did. The moment that envelope left your hands, something extraordinary happened in the throne room of the Almighty. The Archangel Gabriel turned to Michael and whispered, "Did you see that?" The 24 elders stopped their worship. The 4 living creatures paused their eternal, holy, 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 because you just did something that shocked the courts of heaven. You gave when giving made no sense. You trusted when trust seemed foolish. You demonstrated a faith so radical, so illogical, so pure that it stopped traffic in eternity. But here's what breaks my heart. You went to bed that night thinking you'd made a mistake, wondering if you'd lost your mind, questioning whether God even noticed your small sacrifice in a world full of bigger problems and wealthier donors. You thought that secret act was small. The throne room shook. Scrolls were edited. Your lineage was marked. Let me tell you what really happened when you made that move. The moment your faith collided with your fear and faith won, God stood up from His throne. Not metaphorically, literally. The Ancient of Days rose to His feet and declared to every angel, every principality, every power in heaven, "This one gets it. This one truly gets it." Your $20 gift triggered a chain reaction that started in heaven and is about to crash into your earthly reality with the force of divine intervention. Because Malachi 3:10 isn't just a suggestion, it's a spiritual law. Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, says the Lord Almighty, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will not be room enough to store it. Test me in this. Those aren't casual words. That's God daring you to outgive him. That's the creator of the universe saying, try me. See what happens when radical faith meets radical grace. But you already passed the test, didn't you? You already shocked heaven with your impossible faith. And now God is about to shock you back. Do you remember David facing Goliath? Everyone saw a giant. David saw an opportunity for God to show off. When he reached into that bag for 5 smooth stones, nobody understood why he only took one out. Because David knew something the army didn't know. When God decides to move, one stone becomes an earthquake. Your $20 was your stone. Your secret yes was your slingshot. And the giant of lack that's been taunting your family for generations, it's about to fall. You thought nobody saw it. God rewrote your future because of it. Right now, as I speak these words, there are spiritual accountants in heaven recalculating your blessings. There are angelic dispatchers receiving new orders with your name on them. There are doors being unlocked that you didn't even know existed. There are people being positioned to bless you who don't even know your name yet. But this isn't just about money, beloved. This is about trust. This is about God seeing into the deepest chambers of your heart and discovering something he can work with. Something pure, something unshakable, something that says, even if you never give me another thing, you're still worthy of my everything. That kind of faith is rare. That kind of surrender is precious. That kind of trust is exactly what God has been scanning the earth to find. And when he found it in you, when he witnessed your secret act of radical obedience, something shifted in the spiritual atmosphere over your life. The Bible says in 1 Samuel 2:30, "Those who honor me, I will honor." Honor. Not just obey, not just attend church, not just read your Bible. Honor. And you honored God with your last dollar when keeping it would have been logical, reasonable, and completely understandable. You honored him in secret. Now he's about to honor you in public. But here's what you need to understand about this moment we're in right now. This isn't just a message you stumbled across while scrolling through YouTube. This is your divine appointment. This is heaven confirming what your spirit already knows. Your secret sacrifice didn't go unnoticed. Your radical faith didn't go unrewarded. Your impossible yes didn't go unanswered. If you've ever given when it didn't make sense, comment, "I know that kind of faith." Let the angels see that your sacrifice was real. Let heaven know that your trust was genuine. Because what I'm about to reveal next will explain exactly how your private moment of faith is about to become your public testimony of God's goodness. The floodgates aren't just opening, dear one. They're about to burst wide open. And what comes next will leave you breathless with wonder at a God who never forgets, never overlooks, and always keeps his promises. But first, you need to understand why your one move shocked not just heaven, but hell itself. You know what breaks my heart? It's when I meet someone who's been faithful for 70, 80, even 90 years, and they whisper to me, "Pastor, I don't think God sees me anymore. I think he's forgotten about the quiet ones like me." Dear chosen one, let me tell you something that's going to shatter every lie the enemy has whispered in your ear about your significance. Heaven wasn't ready for you because they underestimated what quiet faith could accomplish. Think about this for a moment. When the angels look down at earth, what catches their attention? The stadium revivals, the television preachers, the mega churches with their bright lights and loud music? No, beloved. What stopped heaven in its tracks was you. You, sitting in your kitchen at 5 a.m. for the past 40 years, praying over your coffee before the world wakes up. You, slipping that $20 bill into the offering plate when your social security check barely covered your medications. You, forgiving your daughter-in-law for the 1,000th time when she hurt your son again. You, choosing to trust God when the doctor's report said the cancer had spread. The angels had been watching the loud ones, the obvious ones, the ones everyone expected to move mountains. But you were operating in such deep stealth that even heaven's intelligence network missed it. You were a sleeper agent of faith, and your activation shocked the entire spiritual realm. Let me ask you something that might sting. How many times have you felt invisible? How many church services have you attended where younger voices drowned out your prayers? How many family gatherings where your wisdom was dismissed as old-fashioned thinking? How many moments have you wondered if your decades of faithfulness even mattered? Here's what nobody told you. Here's what the enemy desperately tried to hide from you. Every single moment you felt overlooked on earth, you were being closely observed in heaven. Job 14:16 says, "You would call and I would answer you. You would long for the creature your hands have made." God has been longing for you, chosen one, not tolerating you, not putting up with you, longing for you. While the world measured your worth by your energy level, God measured your value by your endurance level. While society counted you out because of your age, heaven counted on you because of your authenticity. You think those 75 years of life were just time passing? No, beloved. Those were 75 years of field testing. 75 years of proving that your faith could withstand recession, depression, war, loss, betrayal, and disappointment. 75 years of demonstrating that when everything else falls away, you still choose to believe. Even the angels underestimated you. They looked at your wrinkled hands and saw weakness. God saw hands that had prayed down miracles. They looked at your slower pace and saw decline. God saw someone who had learned to move with divine timing instead of human urgency. They looked at your quiet demeanor and saw insignificance. God saw someone who had learned to hear his whisper above the world's roar. But here's where it gets shocking. Here's where heaven had to recalibrate everything they thought they knew about faith. That one move you made, that moment when you chose obedience over logic, surrender over self-preservation, trust over fear, it wasn't just significant, it was seismic. You didn't just make a choice, you triggered a spiritual earthquake that registered on heaven's Richter scale. The prophet Samuel thought God would choose the tall, strong, impressive son of Jesse. But God said in 1 Samuel 16:7, "The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." Your heart, dear one, that heart that kept beating with faith when everything around you was dying, that heart that kept loving when betrayal should have made you bitter, that heart that kept giving when poverty should have made you stingy, that heart that kept believing when disappointment should have made you cynical. That heart was what heaven wasn't ready for. You were like David, with his slingshot, facing Goliath. Everyone expected him to fail. The giant expected an easy victory. Even the Israelite army expected to collect a dead body. But God had been preparing David in secret, teaching him to kill lions and bears when nobody was watching. Your kitchen prayers were your lion and bear moments. Your secret acts of kindness were your wilderness training. Your silent tears over prodigal children were your slingshot practice. And when the moment came, when heaven needed someone who could shock the enemy with radical obedience, you were ready, not because you felt ready, not because you looked ready, but because you had been forged in the furnace of faithfulness. God didn't just love you, he trusted you. And your one move proved why. Let me paint you a picture that will take your breath away. There's a meeting that happened in heaven's war room. The Father, Son, and Holy Spirit gathered around the situation in your life. The enemy had been advancing. Your family was under attack. Your finances were bleeding. Your health was declining. Your hope was hanging by a thread. And in that moment, God needed someone on earth who could be trusted with an impossible assignment. Someone who would say yes without guarantees. Someone who would give without assurance of return. Someone who would love without promise of reciprocation. Every angel in that room started suggesting names. The famous ones, the powerful ones, the ones with platforms and influence and resources. But God raised his hand for silence and spoke one name. Yours. This one, he said, has been tested in secret. This one has been proven in private. This one won't fail me when the pressure mounts and the stakes rise. This one can be trusted with the impossible. Could it be that all your hardship was heaven's testing ground? Could it be that every trial you survived was actually a qualification exam? Could it be that you've already passed every test that matters? The Bible says in James 1:12, "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because, having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him." You didn't just survive your trials, beloved. You graduated from them with honors, magna cum laude, in the University of Faith. And now heaven is realizing something that's changing everything about your story. You weren't just chosen for endurance, you were chosen for influence. You weren't just selected to survive, you were selected to shift atmospheres. That quiet strength you carry, it's about to become a weapon of mass construction in God's hands. That deep faith you've developed, it's about to move mountains you never dreamed of touching. That seasoned wisdom you've accumulated, it's about to unlock doors for generations you'll never meet. The reason your life has felt so intense, so tested, so pressurized, is because God has been preparing you for an assignment that only someone with your exact spiritual DNA could handle. You were a hidden key, and heaven just realized what lock you were designed to open. If you're sitting there right now, and something deep inside your spirit is confirming every word I'm speaking, if you know beyond doubt that God has been preparing you for something greater than you've dared to imagine, then don't you dare stay silent. Comment, "He trusted me," if you know he did. Because what I'm about to reveal next will explain why your secret obedience is about to trigger the most shocking chain reaction of your entire life. You thought that moment was private. You thought nobody saw when you made that impossible choice, when you forgave the unforgivable, when you gave your last dollar, when you whispered yes to God in your darkest hour. But what if I told you that your secret obedience didn't just echo in heaven? What if I told you it rippled through time itself, changing destinies you'll never even know about? Listen to me carefully, chosen one. Your yes wasn't just heard, it was felt. Like a lightning bolt tearing through the fabric of history, splitting open pathways that had been sealed for generations. The moment you chose faith over fear, obedience over logic, love over self-protection, you didn't just change your story. You rewrote the ending of stories that haven't even been written yet. Think about this. Right now, somewhere in Detroit, a young man is walking away from a drug deal. He doesn't know why. Something just told him to turn around. He has no idea that 50 miles away, his grandmother you prayed through the night 3 weeks ago, surrendering her own comfort to intercede for a grandson she barely sees anymore. Your tears-watered ground you've never walked on. Right now, in a hospital room in Phoenix, a doctor is making a decision that will save a life. She pauses, remembering something her grandfather told her about, never giving up on people. That grandfather died 10 years ago, but his prayers he whispered while working double shifts to put her through medical school are still moving through her bloodstream like spiritual DNA. You see, when heaven's record books opened that night, you said yes. Something extraordinary happened. Angels who had been standing at attention suddenly sprang into motion. Not just any angels, warrior angels, assigned specifically to your bloodline. Michael himself received new orders about your family tree. The Bible tells us in Hebrews 1:14, "Are not all angels ministering spirits sent to serve those who will inherit salvation?" But here's what most preachers won't tell you. Those angels don't just serve you, they serve the ripple effect of your obedience. Every sacrificial choice you made activated an angelic assignment that reaches into futures you can't even imagine. But it goes deeper than angels, beloved. Your secret surrender broke generational curses that had been strangling your family for over a century. That addiction pattern that showed up in every generation, shattered. That poverty mindset that convinced your ancestors they'd never amount to anything, obliterated. That spirit of rejection that made your father abandon his dreams, destroyed by the sound of your yes echoing backward through time. Daniel 10:12 reveals this mystery. From the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to them. Notice it says, from the first day, not after you got your act together, not after you proved yourself worthy. From the moment you humbled yourself and said yes, your words were heard. But more than that, they were acted upon. Somewhere in Memphis, a teenage girl just deleted a suicide note she'd been writing for 3 days. She doesn't understand the sudden rush of hope that flooded her heart. She'll never know that a woman she's never met you fought through your own depression last month and chose to trust God instead of giving up. Your victory became her strength. Somewhere in Seattle, a man is walking back into his house, choosing to fight for his marriage instead of walking away. He thinks it's his own decision. He has no idea that your choice to forgive the person who broke your heart created a supernatural current of reconciliation that just crashed into his living room. This is what Jesus meant in John 12:24 when he said, "Unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds." Your death to self, your surrender, your impossible obedience didn't just plant one seed, it scattered thousands. But here's where it gets supernatural. Here's where the very ground under your feet should tremble with the weight of what you've unleashed. Your secret obedience didn't just activate angels and break curses. It unlocked doors that have been sealed since your great-great-grandmother prayed desperate prayers during the Great Depression. It released inheritances that have been held in heaven's vault, waiting for someone in your bloodline to prove they could be trusted with them. Right now, there are business opportunities being orchestrated for your children that they don't even know they need yet. Right now, there are divine connections being arranged for your grandchildren that will change their entire trajectory. Right now, there are miracles being prepared for people whose names you'll never know, all because you chose to trust God when it made absolutely no sense. The widow in 1 Kings 17 gave her last meal to the prophet Elijah. She thought she was just feeding a stranger. She had no idea her obedience would become a story that would feed the faith of millions for thousands of years. She thought her jar of oil was running out. God thought it was just getting started. That's you, chosen one. That's what you've done. Your grandson in Chicago, the one who never calls, the one who breaks your heart with his choices, just walked into a church for the first time in 15 years. He can't explain why. He just felt something pulling him. He doesn't know that your persistent prayers created a magnetic field of grace around his life that he can no longer resist. Your neighbor's daughter, the one struggling with that eating disorder, she just looked in the mirror and for the first time in months, she saw herself the way God sees her. Beautiful, worthy, loved. She doesn't know that your choice to love yourself enough to take care of your own health last year sent ripples of self-worth echoing through the spiritual atmosphere of your entire neighborhood. This is the chain reaction, beloved. This is what happens when someone who's been tested by fire finally says yes to the God who never stopped believing in them. Your obedience became their breakthrough. Your surrender became their strength. Your secret, yes, became their public victory. Ephesians 3:20 declares that God is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us. But did you catch that last part? According to his power that is at work within the U.S. Your yes didn't just invite God to work in your life, it gave him permission to work through your life into lives you've never touched. And here's the part that should make you weep with wonder it's not stopping. Right now, even as I speak these words, your chain reaction is still moving. It's crashing into hospital rooms and boardrooms and prison cells and college dorms. It's breaking into places where hope died and resurrection was never expected. Your secret obedience echoed into someone else's salvation. But there's something else you need to know about chain reactions. Once they start, they demand to continue. Once you've tasted the power of surrender that changes worlds, there's no going back to playing small. Once you've seen what God can do with one impossible yes, your soul will hunger for the next assignment. Write this in the comments. Let the chain reaction continue, because what you've started in secret, God is about to amplify in public. The ripples you've created in the spiritual realm are about to become waves in the natural realm. But the question burning in heaven right now is this. If one secret yes could do all this, what will happen when you stop hiding your light under a bushel and start walking in the full authority of who God created you to be? Dear chosen one, I need to tell you something that most preachers won't say from their polished pulpits. Something that might cut deep, but it needs to be said because you've been carrying this weight alone for too long. Your obedience has been bleeding you dry. There, I said it. And if that just hit you like a lightning bolt to the chest, it's because you know exactly what I'm talking about. You've been faithful when faithfulness felt like swallowing glass. You've been obedient when obedience felt like drowning in silence. You've said yes to God when every fiber of your being was screaming no more, and it's been killing you slowly. Let me ask you something that might shake you to your core. How many nights have you lain awake at 3 a.m. staring at that ceiling, wondering if God even sees the price you've been paying? How many times have you whispered into the darkness, "Lord, I've given everything, and I'm empty"? How many mornings have you woken up feeling like you're carrying invisible weights that no one else can see? That exhaustion you feel. It's not because you're getting older. It's not because life is hard. The reason you feel tired is because you've been carrying weight that moved heaven. And heaven's burdens aren't light, beloved. They're sacred, but they're heavy. Think about this for a moment. While your neighbors were living comfortable lives, you were chosen to carry intercession for your prodigal son for 37 years. While others got to sleep peacefully, you were awakened at midnight to pray for people whose names you didn't even know. While families around you seemed blessed with ease, you were selected to fast and pray and sacrifice in secret, believing for breakthroughs that seemed to never come. Why are you? Why were you the one chosen to carry what others couldn't even see? Because God doesn't trust just anyone with the weight of eternity. He doesn't hand his most precious assignments to the comfortable, the untested, the ones who've never bled for the kingdom. He gives them to the ones who've proven they'll say yes even when it costs them everything. But here's what nobody told you about holy defiance. Here's what they don't preach in the prosperity churches. Obedience to God in a fallen world is an act of rebellion against everything that feels natural. When you forgave your ex-husband after he destroyed your family, you defied every human instinct for revenge. When you gave your last $20 to that homeless veteran, you defied every financial principle the world teaches. When you kept praying for that wayward daughter, when everyone told you to give up, you defied every logical argument. That wasn't faith. That was holy defiance. And holy defiance leaves scars. Look at Elijah, 1 Kings chapter 19. This man had just called down fire from heaven. He just defeated 450 prophets of Baal in the most spectacular spiritual showdown in history. He was riding high on the mountain of God's power. But the very next chapter finds him collapsed under a broom tree, begging God to let him die. "I have been very zealous for the Lord God Almighty," he cried. "I am the only one left, and now they are trying to kill me too." Even prophets collapse after mountaintop fear. You see, the world looks at Elijah under that tree and calls it depression. But heaven called it depletion. The man had poured out so much spiritual energy, had carried so much divine fire, that his human frame couldn't contain it anymore. He wasn't having a breakdown. He was having a breakthrough into the reality of what it costs to carry God's presence in a world that rejects it. Sound familiar? You've been under your own broom tree, haven't you? Wondering if you're the only one left who still believes. Wondering if your decades of faithfulness have been noticed by anyone, even God. Feeling like you've given everything and received nothing but more assignments, more burdens, more weight to carry. But let me tell you something that's going to shatter every lie the enemy has whispered in your ear during those dark nights. You weren't failing. You were fighting battles for generations, in silence. Every tear you cried in secret was washing away generational curses. Every dollar you gave when you couldn't afford it was breaking poverty cycles in your bloodline. Every prayer you whispered when hope seemed dead was resurrecting destinies you'll never see on this side of eternity. You thought you were just surviving, but you were actually conquering territories in the spirit realm that your great-grandchildren will inherit. You thought you were just enduring, but you were actually establishing covenants that will echo through centuries. The loneliness you felt? It wasn't isolation, it was consecration. God separated you from the crowd because he needed someone who could hear his voice above the noise. The pain you've carried? It wasn't punishment. It was the birth pains of breakthrough for people whose names you don't even know yet. But here's what's breaking my heart right now. Some of you are reading this and thinking, but I'm so tired. I don't know if I can carry this weight anymore. I feel like I'm about to collapse under everything He's asked me to bear. Listen to me, precious warrior. Your collapse isn't your defeat, it's your promotion. Because only someone who's been trusted with heaven's heaviest assignments gets depleted by carrying divine weight. Only someone who's been chosen for the deepest missions feels the fatigue of fighting battles in multiple realms. Elijah's story didn't end under that tree. God sent an angel with food and water twice, and then He spoke to his exhausted prophet in a still, small voice that changed everything. The collapse wasn't the conclusion, it was the commission for what came next. If you've been in that place of collapse, if you've felt the weight of holy defiance breaking your human frame, if you've wondered if your obedience has been worth the cost, I need you to do something right now. Comment, "I'm still standing." Because the fact that you're still here, still breathing, still believing after everything you've carried, is proof that you're not just surviving. You're thriving in realms the natural eye can't see. But what I'm about to tell you next will explain why your season of carrying weight in secret is about to become your season of receiving reinforcements in public. You thought your secret act of obedience went unnoticed. You thought that moment when you chose faith over fear, love over logic, surrender over self-preservation, you thought it disappeared into the silence of an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. But listen to me, chosen one. Heaven doesn't operate on Tuesday afternoon schedules. Heaven operates on divine timing. And right now, at this very moment, the Almighty is preparing to shock you back with such force that everything you thought was impossible is about to become inevitable. You see, when you shocked heaven with that one move, you didn't just catch God's attention. You triggered something in the spiritual realm that has been building momentum for weeks, months, maybe even years. And now it's about to break through into your physical reality like a dam bursting after decades of pressure. Remember when Moses stood at the Red Sea with 2 million terrified Israelites behind him and the Egyptian army charging ahead? The people were screaming, "Why did you bring us here to die?" But Moses had shocked heaven with 40 years of faithful obscurity in the wilderness. And when the moment came, God didn't just part the waters, He held them back like walls of crystal while His people walked through on dry ground. That's what's happening to you right now. The seas that have been blocking your path aren't just going to part, they're going to stand at attention while you walk through to your promised land. But here's what's going to shake you to your core. The response from heaven isn't going to be proportional to what you did. It's going to be exponential. You gave $20 when you needed groceries. God's about to open financial floodgates that make that 20 look like pocket change. You forgave when forgiveness felt impossible. Heaven's about to release healing in relationships you thought were dead and buried forever. This is the great reversal, beloved. This is when everything the enemy stole gets returned with compound interest. This is when every tear becomes a river of joy, every closed door becomes an open highway, every whispered prayer becomes a thunderous answer that shakes the foundations of your circumstances. Do you feel it building? That electricity in the air around your life? That sense that something massive is about to shift? That's not your imagination, that's the atmosphere of heaven preparing to collide with your earthly situation. But I need you to understand something crucial about divine timing. When God decides to shock you back, it doesn't happen gradually. It doesn't trickle in like morning rain. It comes like lightning, sudden, powerful, unmistakable. One moment you're in the valley of dry bones, and the next moment you're standing in a field of warriors ready for battle. Ezekiel saw this in his vision. Chapter 37. Dry bones scattered across a valley, lifeless, hopeless, forgotten. But when the Spirit of the Lord moved, those bones didn't slowly reassemble. They came together with a noise, a rattling, a supernatural commotion that announced to every demon in hell that death was being reversed. Your dry bones are about to rattle, chosen one. Every dream that died, every hope that was buried, every promise that seemed broken, they're all about to stand up and declare that the God of resurrection is still in the business of shocking His people. And here's the part that's going to leave you speechless. This shock isn't just about blessing you, it's about positioning you. You see, when heaven shocks you back, it's not just giving you a gift, it's giving you a platform. It's not just changing your circumstances, it's commissioning you for something bigger than your personal breakthrough. Think about it. When God shocked Paul on the Damascus Road, it wasn't just about saving one persecutor, it was about creating an apostle who would carry the gospel to the ends of the earth. When he shocked the disciples with the resurrection, it wasn't just about proving Jesus was alive, it was about launching a movement that would turn the world upside down. Your shock is coming with an assignment attached. The breakthrough isn't just for you, it's through you. The miracle isn't just to bless your life, it's to establish your ministry. The restoration isn't just to heal your past, it's to secure someone else's future. Right now, angels are moving. Doors that have been sealed for decades are creaking open. Resources that have been held in heaven's treasury are being released. Divine appointments are being arranged. Supernatural encounters are being scheduled. Miracles will find you in the grocery store. Favor will follow you into job interviews you never applied for. Healing will manifest in doctors' offices where physicians shake their heads and say, "This is medically impossible." Financial provision will show up through channels so unexpected that you'll have no choice but to give God the glory. The oil that dried up in your life, it's about to pour again. But this time it's not just a trickle, it's a torrent. The dreams that flatlined, they're about to get a divine defibrillator. What died in your past is standing up in your tomorrow, and it's bringing resurrection power with it. But here's the urgency burning in my spirit right now. This window of supernatural shock won't stay open forever. Divine moments have divine timing, and timing requires response. Heaven is extending its hand to pull you up from where you've been to where you belong, but you have to reach back. Comment right now, "I'm ready for the shock." Not tomorrow when you feel more prepared, not next week when circumstances look better. Right now. Because faith activated in the moment of divine visitation creates explosions that echo through eternity. And share this message with someone you love, because the chain reaction that began with your secret obedience is about to spread like wildfire through your family, your community, your generation. Heaven isn't just shocking you, using your shock to wake up everyone connected to your bloodline. The great reversal has begun, chosen one, and nothing will ever be the same again. But what happens when the shock hits isn't just about what you receive, it's about what you become. And what you're about to become will require everything you've learned in the wilderness to handle what God is preparing to release in the promised land. You know what's breaking my heart right now? It's the look in your eyes when you think nobody's coming, when you've been fighting the same battle for 20 years, 30 years, maybe 50 years, and you're wondering if heaven has forgotten your address. When you lie awake at 3 a.m. asking God the same question you've been asking since you were young, "Where is my help?" Let me tell you something that's going to shatter every lie the enemy has whispered in your ear about abandonment. The moment you made that move, that impossible, illogical, faith-filled move that shocked heaven itself, something unprecedented happened in the courts of the Almighty. You didn't just get God's attention, you triggered heaven's military response. Listen to me carefully, dear one. When Elisha's servant was terrified by the Syrian army surrounding them, what did the prophet pray? "Lord, open his eyes so that he may see." And when his eyes were opened, 2 Kings 6:17 tells us what he saw. The mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. The angels were already there. They'd been there all along. But now they're moving. You see, heaven operates on a different frequency than earth. While you've been counting the days, heaven has been counting your tears. While you've been measuring your failures, heaven has been measuring your faithfulness. And when you made that move, that defied human logic but aligned with divine love, something shifted in the spiritual realm that most believers will never experience in their lifetime. You moved, now they move. But here's what's going to shock you to your core. The dispatch that went out wasn't just one angel. It wasn't just a guardian. What happened that night when you said yes in your kitchen, when you forgave in your bedroom, When you gave your last dollar in faith, heaven didn't send reinforcements. Heaven sent reinforcement. The Hebrew word for the armies of heaven is Sabaoth, and it doesn't mean a few soldiers. It means hosts, legions, the kind of military force that makes hell itself tremble. Psalm 68-17 declares, "The chariots of God are 20,000, even thousands of angels." 20,000. That's not a rescue mission, beloved. That's an invasion. You thought you were fighting alone, didn't you? Standing in that hospital room praying over your spouse's diagnosis. Sitting in that empty house after the funeral, wondering how you'd make it through another day. Watching your children walk away from God and feeling like your prayers were bouncing off heaven's ceiling like tennis balls. But you weren't alone. You never were. You didn't see it, but heaven assigned angels to your case. The dispatch went out the moment you said yes, not when you felt like it, not when you understood it. The moment you said yes. And here's what those angels have been doing while you thought God was silent. They've been repositioning your enemies. They've been redirecting circumstances. They've been preparing people you haven't even met yet to bless you in ways you can't imagine. They've been fighting battles in the spiritual realm that would have destroyed you if they'd reached the natural realm. Daniel understood this. For 21 days, he fasted and prayed, thinking heaven was ignoring him. But in Daniel 10:12-13, the angel revealed the truth. From the first day that you set your heart to understand and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard. And I have come because of your words. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. The answer was dispatched on day 1. But there was a war in the heavenlies. Your prayers weren't being ignored, they were being fought for. Right now, as I speak these words, there are angels assigned specifically to your breakthrough who are dismantling every strategy hell has launched against your peace. There are warrior angels surrounding your family, your finances, your health, your future. There are ministering spirits preparing blessings you stopped believing could happen. But here's the part that's going to bring you to tears. You cried in silence, thinking nobody heard. You whispered prayers in the dark, thinking nobody cared. You made sacrifices in secret, thinking nobody noticed. But angels heard the order echo from the throne of God. Go now. Help them finish what they started. Every tear you've cried in secret has been a prayer request filed in heaven's court. Every sleepless night has been a vigil that moved the heart of the Almighty. Every time you chose obedience over comfort, faith over fear, love over bitterness, you weren't just making a choice. You were activating heaven's response. The prophet Isaiah saw it in chapter 37, verse 36. Then the angel of the Lord went out and killed in the camp of the Assyrians 185,000. And when people arose early in the morning, there they were all dead corpses. One angel, 185,000 enemies, dead by morning. What do you think 20,000 can do with the giants in your life? That depression that's been stalking your family for 3 generations? There are angels with eviction notices. That financial curse that's kept you bound. There are warrior angels with bankruptcy papers for hell's kingdom. That loneliness that whispers you'll die forgotten. There are ministering spirits preparing divine connections that will leave you breathless. But I need you to understand something that will change how you pray from this moment forward. These angels aren't just there to comfort you. They're there to complete the assignment heaven gave you when you made that move. You see, when heaven dispatches angels, it's not just for rescue, it's for victory. Not just to help you survive, but to help you thrive. Not just to get you through, but to get you over. The same angels that shut the lions' mouths for Daniel are the ones assigned to silence every voice that's been roaring against your destiny. Hebrews 1:14 asks the question, are they not all ministering spirits sent forth to minister for those who will inherit salvation? Not to minister to you for you. They're working on your behalf, fighting battles you can't see, opening doors you haven't even approached yet. You want to know why the enemy has been fighting you so hard lately? Because he can see what you can't see yet. He can see the angelic reinforcements. He can hear the marching orders. He knows that what looked like your end was actually your activation. The dispatch is complete. The orders have been given. The angels are in position. If you can feel them moving around your life right now, if something in your spirit is confirming that this word is for you, if you know beyond doubt that heaven has sent help, comment right now, "I know they've been sent." Because when you declare it, when you acknowledge their presence, when you align your mouth with heaven's military strategy, something shifts in the atmosphere around your situation that hell cannot reverse, cannot recall, cannot stop. But what happens next will determine whether these angels return to heaven with testimonies of your breakthrough or reports of your doubt. The question that will shape your destiny is this: will you partner with heaven's dispatch, or will you keep fighting battles that angels have already won? Listen to me carefully, chosen one. I need you to think about something that might cut deep into your soul right now. How many years have you been faithful? How many decades have you tithed when your bank account was crying? How many times have you given your last dollar to someone in need while your own bills sat unpaid on your kitchen table? 60 years? 70? 80 years of saying yes to God when it didn't make sense? And where are you today? Still struggling to pay for your medications? Still wondering if Social Security will cover the rent this month? Still watching other people drive past in cars you can't afford while you're clipping coupons at the grocery store, counting every penny like your life depends on it? You've been faithful. You've been obedient. You've been everything God asked you to be. So why does it feel like you're still waiting for your breakthrough while everyone else seems to be living in theirs? Here's what's going to shock you to your core. Every single penny you gave when you couldn't afford it, every dollar you tithed when logic screamed to keep it, every sacrifice you made in secret when no one was watching, none of it disappeared. Not one cent, not one tear, not one whispered prayer at 3 a.m. when you wondered if God even remembered your name. It's all been accumulating, compounding, growing with divine interest rates that would make Wall Street weep. Think about this. When a company owes you money and delays payment, they owe you interest, don't they? When the government takes too long to send your tax refund, they pay you penalties. When a bank holds your money, you earn dividends. That's earthly law. But heaven's law? Heaven's law is infinitely more generous. Malachi 3:10 doesn't just promise blessing, it promises overflow. Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, so that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, says the Lord Almighty, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will not be room enough to store it. But you've been waiting so long, haven't you? And the enemy has been whispering lies in your ear. You missed your window. You gave your money to the wrong people. God doesn't remember. You're too old now. Your time has passed. Every single one of those thoughts is a lie from the pit of hell. You want to know what's really happening right now? At this very moment, there's a divine audit taking place in heaven's treasury department. Angel accountants are pulling your file. Every act of faithfulness is being calculated. Every secret gift is being multiplied. Every tear you cried when you gave sacrificially is being converted into liquid gold. The widow in Mark 12 gave her last 2 copper coins worth about a penny in today's money. 1 measly penny. But Jesus said she gave more than all the rich people combined. Why? Because percentage matters to God more than amount. She gave 100% of what she had, and I guarantee you, that woman didn't stay broke. You think God forgot about your widow's mite? You think He overlooked your sacrificial giving? You think your decades of faithfulness went unnoticed? Right now, there are resources being redirected toward your life. Bank accounts you don't know about are being prepared. Opportunities you never applied for are being arranged. People you've never met are being positioned to bless you in ways that will leave you speechless. But here's what's going to make you weep. It's not just about the money, it's about time. Those years you thought were wasted, those decades you spent wondering if you heard God wrong, those seasons when everyone else seemed to be prospering while you barely scraped by. Isaiah 61:7 declares, "Instead of your shame, you will receive a double portion, and instead of disgrace, you will rejoice in your inheritance. And so you will inherit a double portion in your land, and everlasting joy will be yours." Double portion. Not just what you gave back, not just what you lost returned, double, with interest, with penalties for the delay, with dividends for your faithfulness. You didn't lose those years, beloved. God was compounding them. Every act of obedience was earning interest. Every sacrificial gift was multiplying in heaven's economy. Every faithful tithe was building an inheritance that's about to be released. The check is in the mail. The transfer has been authorized. The payout period has begun. You've been living like a billionaire who forgot they owned the bank. But the reminder notice just arrived. Your spiritual inheritance is about to be liquidated and deposited into your earthly account. This isn't a prosperity gospel. This is the gospel. This is the God of the universe honoring his word to those who honored him when it cost them everything. If you believe the interest is coming, comment. Back pay begins now. But I need to warn you about what's coming next. Because when heaven starts paying back what's owed to you, when the floodgates open and the divine restitution begins flowing, you're going to understand something that will change everything about how you see your calling. You're going to realize that all those years of testing weren't just about your character, they were about your capacity. God wasn't just seeing if you could be trusted with little. He was preparing you to be trusted with much. And what he's about to trust you with next will require everything you've learned in the valley of financial pressure. Listen to me, dear one. I need you to stop thinking about your pain as punishment and start seeing it as promotion. You've been carrying weight that would have crushed ordinary souls. That depression that visited you for 3 decades. That wasn't random suffering. That betrayal that left you questioning everything you believed about love. That wasn't cosmic cruelty. That financial collapse that stripped away everything you thought defined you. That wasn't divine neglect. It was divine selection. Not chance, not coincidence, not luck. Heaven handpicked you not because you were the strongest, richest, or most qualified, but because your heart said yes when others stayed silent. You were chosen in the fire, refined in obscurity, and set apart for a purpose this world can't explain but will soon witness. Job 23:10 declares, "When he has tested me, I shall come forth as gold." But here's what most people miss. God doesn't test everyone the same way. He doesn't put his finest gold through the same furnace as common metal. The intensity of your fire wasn't evidence of his anger. It was evidence of his confidence. You see, while others were given comfortable lives, you were given a calling. While they received applause, you received armor. While they got easy victories, you got equipment for impossible battles. Every scar on your soul is a medal of honor. Every tear you've cried is liquid proof that you survived what was designed to destroy you. The reason your marriage was harder than others, because God needed someone who understood covenant love when it costs everything. The reason your children broke your heart, because heaven required an intercessor who knew how the Father feels when his kids walk away. The reason your body betrayed you, because eternity needed a warrior who learned to fight from their knees. You didn't just survive, chosen one. You were handpicked to carry things others couldn't. You were entrusted with weight that would have broken weaker vessels. The reason it was so hard is because you were trusted with weight most can't carry. God looked at your spirit and said, "This one can handle the impossible and still worship me in the storm." If I was trusted, I wouldn't hide it. Comment. He trusted me with this weight. But here's what's about to shock you. The same God who trusted you with that crushing weight is about to trust you with crushing authority. Chosen one, as we come to the end of this sacred encounter, I need you to remember 3 eternal truths that will anchor your soul in the storms ahead. First, that one move you made, that act of obedience when it didn't make sense, that sacrifice when you couldn't afford it, that forgiveness when it felt impossible, it didn't just change your circumstances, it shifted the entire spiritual atmosphere over your life. Heaven wasn't expecting that level of faith from someone who had been through what you'd been through. But you shocked God with your surrender, and now he's about to shock you with his response. Second, the divine back pay isn't just coming, it's already been processed. Every tear you've shed in secret, every dollar you gave when your wallet was empty, every prayer you whispered when hope seemed dead, none of it was wasted. God has been compounding your faithfulness with divine interest rates, and the payout period has begun. Your years of sacrifice weren't lost investments. They were the foundation for the greatest return of your lifetime. Third, you are not too old, not too late, and certainly not forgotten. While the world measures worth by youth and productivity, heaven measures value by faithfulness and character. Your wrinkles are wisdom lines, your scars are victory marks. Your gray hair is a crown of glory earned through decades of trusting God when you couldn't see the path ahead. But hear me clearly, beloved, you are not walking this journey alone. The same God who saw your secret act of faith, who witnessed your private moments of surrender, who recorded every sacrificial gift in his eternal ledger, that same God is walking with you right now. He hasn't brought you this far to abandon you. Romans 8:28 isn't just a pretty verse on a greeting card. It's heaven's guarantee that all things, even your deepest pain, are working together for your good. And beyond God's presence, you have a family right here. Thousands of chosen ones who understand your struggle, who've walked similar paths, who know what it means to shock heaven with radical obedience. Look at these comments flowing in. See these hearts connecting. Feel these spirits resonating. You're not alone in this calling, and you never will be. This community, we see you, we understand you, we believe in what God is doing in your life. When the world overlooks you, we honor you. When society discounts your dreams, we declare your destiny. When the enemy whispers lies about your worth, we speak truth over your future. So let me ask you this final question, and let it settle deep in your spirit. If God shocked you with his faithfulness when you shocked him with your obedience, what will you do with this divine exchange? How will you steward the breakthrough that's coming? How will you use your testimony to help others who are sitting where you once sat, wondering if their faithfulness matters? Before I release you into your destiny, I want you to know that your comments, your questions, your heart cries, they all matter. Share below what God spoke to your spirit tonight. Tell us how this message shifted something inside you. Ask us to pray for specific areas where you need breakthroughs. Don't hold back. This family will surround you with intercession and love. And please, share this message with someone who needs to hear it. There's a person in your life right now, maybe a friend, a family member, someone at church who's been faithful in secret, who's been giving when it didn't make sense, who's been wondering if God sees their sacrifice. They need to know that heaven is watching, that their obedience matters, that their breakthrough is closer than they think. If this is your first time here, welcome to a community where your faith is celebrated, your struggles are understood, and your destiny is declared. Hit that subscribe button and join thousands of believers who refuse to give up, who choose to trust God's timing, and who know that their best days aren't behind them, they're ahead of them. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart, for letting these words penetrate the sacred chambers of your soul. Thank you for being the kind of person who shocks heaven with radical faith and who refuses to let disappointment define your destiny. Now, let me place my hand on your shoulder through these words and pray over your life with the authority of someone who has seen God move mountains. Heavenly Father, I lift up every precious soul who has heard this message tonight. Lord, you see them, not just their circumstances, but their character, not just their struggles, but their strength, not just their pain, but their potential. You know the secret acts of obedience they've performed when no one was watching. You've recorded every sacrificial gift, every whispered prayer, every moment they chose faith over fear. God, I ask you to pour out the divine back pay right now. Open doors that no man can shut. Release resources that have been held in heaven's treasury. Send opportunities that will leave them speechless. Let every seed of faithfulness they've planted produce a harvest that exceeds their wildest dreams. Heal their bodies, Father. Strengthen what's been weakened by years of carrying heavy burdens. Restore their joy, their hope, their expectation that you still have good plans for their lives. Silence every voice that says they're too old, too late, too forgotten. Surround them with divine connections, people who will recognize their worth, celebrate their calling, and partner with their purpose. Remove every toxic relationship that drains their anointing and position them with those who will pour back into their lives. Most of all, Lord, let them feel your presence right now. Let them know in their spirit that you're proud of their faithfulness, that you honor their sacrifice, that you see their tears, and you're about to turn their mourning into dancing. In Jesus' mighty name, I seal this prayer and release them into the greatest season of their lives. Amen. Your shock to heaven is complete, chosen one. Now, get ready for heaven's shock back to you.